Okay, everybody, welcome to the channel. This is Dondi with Life Anime Gaming, and today we're gonna do I'm doing a new series called Collector Spotlight. What Collector Spotlight will be is basically I'll pick a collector once a week, and we'll talk about their love, what they collect, and then they'll also show some of the stuff they've collected over the years. So this is my the first person up is my uncle Tony, Tony Carson. Say hi, Tony, to the audience.
How many people are going to be in this audience?
Right now, well, we're recording it, so it'll be on later when it goes up. But let me why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself? Give them a little background.
Okay, well, like Dondi was saying, I'm his uncle. That's my claim to fame, I think. I am from South Carolina originally. I went to the University of South Carolina and studied music. I'm a professional musician that's living and working in Albuquerque, New Mexico since 1997, which is like 23 years ago almost now. It seems like forever ago. And I have been pretty active in the community here in a number of ways. I'm a band director for a high school and a music director for a church.
And he was one of the reasons why I got into sci-fi and comics and a bunch of other nerdy things. One of my first memories is going to my grandmother's house, or what I call my man's house, and seeing his Star Wars collection. So, I mean, and I thought at the time, as being a little kid, I thought he had every single figure that there was ever made for the Star Wars, because he had like all of them there on the shelves, and I always wanted to play with them. So, what we're going to do is ask some questions, and and get him to answer his perspective as a collector. So, the first question I'm going to ask is, what franchises do you primarily collect? What do you usually? What makes you want to collect those franchises?
I think Star Wars, because that's kind of what I got into when I was a kid. But I think generally speaking, just anything sci-fi. As a youngster, one of the first TV shows I remember watching was Lost in Space.
Oh yeah,
And I just loved the robot that was in there. So Christmas time would come around, and I was like, I want a robot. I want a robot, like Star, like on Lost in Space. My parents never quite understood what that was, and I got a robot every year for several years, but it wasn't the Lost in Space robot.
yeah.
As I'm a little bit older, Star Wars came out, Star Trek, and things like that. So,
That's
just sci-fi,
Yeah. And I mean, what was the second question I have is, how did you start your Star Wars collection, and what was your first figure?
Well, I was saying just a little bit earlier. Star Wars was like the very first movie that actually had a marketing component to it alongside as the production was going on. I think
Yeah.
previous to that, the companies might pick up on, hey, we could do a line of toys after the movie was out and was a success. But I think with Star Wars, George Lucas was smart enough. He contracted with toy companies to create a line of toys as he was in production,
Yeah.
which was kind of an adventurous thing to do for an unknown movie
Uh-huh.
at that time. And they debate, and I think even Mark Hamill made a part of his contract that whatever toy that was developed, that he would get one of the editions of it. And of course, back then they thought Star Wars was not going to be something we'd be talking about 40 something years later.
Yeah.
Okay, this will be good for a couple of years and we'll move on, right?
Yeah.
But, anyway, so when Star Wars came out and it was a hit, um, they were rattling the cages about there were going to be toys out, right? And of course, and I was like maybe 11 or 12, I think, at the time.
Uh-huh.
And so one day I happened to be in a store, sort of like a Walmart, uh, Kmart kind of store back then. It was called Sky City in my
Yeah.
hometown.
I remember this guy.
And I remember I was in the toy section, and boom, there was this C3PO, right? And I was like almost orgasmic, okay, for an 11-year-old. And I was like, oh my God. So I went and told my mom, you know, I got this thing, and I think it was like $3 or $4 at that time, which was a lot of money, you know. And so she forked over the money, and I got it. And I remember when I took it out of the package, and I still actually have the package, I believe. I took it in the package, and the legs were kind of jammed. They didn't move, and so I was like so scared I was going to break it because I knew they were supposed to move and stuff like that. They have no trouble moving now. It's more like a handicap or something,
Yeah.
you know. And so I was just thrilled to death, and this was my only Star Wars action figure for like the longest before the next one was released. I don't know if your viewers would know, but back then, Star Wars, with the action figures from Mattel, they were going on a. It was Mattel? No, Kenner.
Yeah.
They were trying to rush to get them out by Christmas, but they weren't going to really make it that year. And so what they did was they would sell a card, and the kid could get that for Christmas. And then as soon as the first 4 or 5 action figures came out, they could mail in that card to Mattel and get them. It was sort of like a free Christmas gift card kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so that's how Kenner, not Mattel, Kenner, got the toys out for Star Wars. So I kept watching, and gradually more and more came out until I have like 40 of them now. Now, here's the one thing, okay? If you were really a good collector, and I was, and you collected first 12, which are all of them that they had at that time, I think, you could take the proof of purchases off the little card and send them into Kenner, and I think it was $3 a kit you had to send with it for shipping or something, and you got this little plastic stand that had little levers that could make them turn sideways, and you could like look at them like in a display.
Yeah.
And in the back, that had a card that slipped in there that had a fight scene from the Death Star. And I had that.
Oh, that's cool.
I ordered it, and I had that, and I had it for years. And then I fell in love with the idea that they're going to have a Darth Vader head for your carrier to keep your action figures in. I got that, and I tossed.
Yeah, it's worth a lot now.
And I cannot tell you, when I look on to see how much that would have been worth if I still had it with the original characters too.
Yeah.
You know, that makes me really sad. I keep thinking, God, what could I do with that $1,500 now?
Yeah, but I mean, the question is, if you had it, would you get rid of it? You probably would just keep it. It's just like if you find something that is worth a lot, you're like, man, maybe I should keep it for my collection. Yeah.
I still have and this is comic books, but I bought the Superman Death comic book. And I kept it in its package all these years because I originally bought it because I thought Christopher, your cousin, would like it. I thought I'll keep it because if I send it to him, he's going to open it up, and maybe in years to come it'll be worth something. Well, guess what? It's worth nothing. But I still.
So you pretty much answered all my questions about Star Wars, because I was going to ask you about that pack, and I know that like when I walked in, like I said, back in the day when I would go over to your house, all those Star Wars figs, it's just like oh my God, I'd be like, oh, I want to play with all of them. And I know you got a pretty good collection, huh? What was that?
And we did play with them.
Yeah, we did play with them. Yeah, exactly. Let's see. What's your favorite figure in your collection? Why is it your favorite? It's one of the other questions.
My favorite figure. I think my favorite of the Star Wars collectibles from that era is Obi-Wan Kenobi, Luke Skywalker, and Darth Vader.
Okay.
Because the lightsaber that sort of worked. It was a
Uh-huh.
little rod. It was a little rod in their sleeve, in the back of
Yeah.
their pushes. You got the
Yeah.
lightsaber. And of course, when they were done fighting, it went back in. And I thought that was the neatest trick, you
Cool.
know, that they came with when they were putting these together. So that was my favorite. I think.
Do you collect anything now, or you kind of laid off of collecting, or?
I have almost all of my toys from my childhood, starting from the
Uh,
time when I was 4. I think Santa Claus brought me a Tonka car carrier,
Okay.
and I still have it. And I got a few others. I've gotten old, and
You're not
I
old. It's
grew up.
just you grow in season. Let's put it that way.
Grew up, I guess, a little bit, and so. But now, what I collect, I'm into cars. I'm
Uh,
a collect. I've got a little Jaguar XJS. I've got a Lincoln Blackwood. And I've got an old limousine, and I've got a more modern 2012. And the kind of cars that I like are few of a kind or one of a kinds.
uh,
And like my Lincoln Wood, there are only 3,500 of those made. I just had to have one. And my limousine is one of one. There's no other in the whole world like it. So
yeah. Also, one of your cars was featured or was bought by one of the movies on YouTube. Not movies, but series on YouTube. It was featured in that series, which I thought was really cool. If you want to speak on that, you can tell them about that too.
yeah, the it was a 1979 Lincoln Township, a big ass car, and I've really taken care of it over the years because I take care of everything. That's why I've got my toys still, and I got the limousine. I really need two cars from that same era because the limousine is a '78, and so I decided I had to kind of part company regrettably with because I'd had it for like 19 years that car. And so I put it on sale on Craigslist, and the buyer from Netflix contacted me. And at first, they wanted to just rent it, but then after they took a look at it, they were going to make some modifications to it, like pop out the windshield and stuff like that. And so they said, "Can we just buy it?" So I let them make me a really good deal when they bought it. And when you watch, you have to own the car and know the car to see
Yeah.
what they did to it, and so you could see what changes they had made to it. But it was
Yeah.
in several scenes and a couple of episodes of that
It was
called Daybreak.
what, Daybreakers. Yeah. Yeah, it was a pretty
Yeah.
cool series. I watched a little bit of it. So let's see. How do you feel collecting has changed from your youth up to now? How do you feel, with toys and stuff that has changed?
No, like I was telling you, when Star Wars hit, you have to think about the market. Okay, back in the 50s and 60s and 70s, now wasn't born until the early 60s, but you know, collecting, particularly toys, wasn't the wasn't what it is now.
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
you
Star Wars is
find
what kind of kicked it off. Yeah.
I think so too. But when like if a TV series came out and it was popular, they'd come out with toys, like I said before. But it would be kind of just gratuitous. You would just get a few of the big items, like a spaceship or something like that. But now, I think the toy companies are smart, and even if a show is a flop, they're going to go in with both feet first, to try to, on the outside chance that it's a hit. So I think that when I first started getting toys related to the stuff I was interested in, you know, they were thought of as toys, and they were priced accordingly, sometimes expensive, sometimes not so expensive, depending on how complicated it was. But now I think toy companies think, okay, they're going to be geeks who are going to be picking this stuff up for years and years and years, so let's almost price it out of the market, so that I think a lot of kids just don't get some of the toys and actually enjoying playing with them because either their parents for them can't afford them right away, or they're afraid to let them actually play with them because they're too expensive.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think there's a two markets for toys now. There's the kids market where they market it for kids, and then an adult market where they market it for adults. And again, I think Star Wars, you kind of kicked that off because people went back to, hey, I want those Star Wars toys that I had when I was a kid. And then prices started going up, and the toy, the company started seeing that that's what was going on. So they decided, hey, we can maybe sell to adults as well, and sell. So that's why you see a lot of Star Wars toys marketed to adults nowadays instead of kids. Yeah, so let's see. If you had any figure from your youth or from now that if you could say, hey, I want this figure made, from this series, what figure would that be? If you had the power just to snap your fingers and make it exist.
Now, figure could also be a vehicle, right?
Yeah, anything that you want. That's what I say. If you could snap your finger and make anything like a collectible, add it to your collection, what would it be?
There was a show called Logan's Run. There was a movie called Logan's Run.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's a really good movie. Yeah.
And then there was a short-lived TV series that came out after that.
Okay.
They had a vehicle that they got around in, and they just refer to it as the hovercraft or the solar craft.
Uh-huh.
And people who actually built the vehicle, it went to the scrapyard a long time ago. But actually, I thought that was the neatest thing, the way it would raise and lower. It actually looked like a real hovercraft that would sit down when they parked. the the people in California who make their cars jump up and down, they do that stuff with hydraulics now all the time. But back then it was pretty amazing to do. And the other show that I really loved as a kid that was vehicular. I guess sounds like a homicide. Was Arc 2.
I don't think I've heard of that one.
Oh yeah, you can look it up. They had basically what looked like a big giant camper, a big RV that they run around apocalyptic Earth to kind of.
Oh, cool. That sounds like something I would love.
Yeah, it was. I don't know if you know Space Academy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was those little spaceships on wheels.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you ever take a look at it, but I love Arc 2. To watching it now, I get all nostalgic when I see it because it all means it takes me back to my childhood, you know, and then I realize, oh wow, there was a lesson in there that I didn't get when I was 10. So I think Arc
So,
2.
what advice would you give somebody who's just got into collecting? What if you were new to collecting? What would you tell people? What mistakes have you made? What should they not collect? How should they go about collecting?
Well, of course, when I was a kid, you don't know what you are when you're a kid, right?
Uh-huh.
And you get a toy and play with it. And I was one of the lucky kids, pretty much if I saw something I wanted it, I got it eventually. Okay, and I was a good kid, so I deserved all the good things, right?
Yeah.
And so, but a lot of kids didn't, right? And
Uh-huh.
so now when I buy something or people gift me things because they know I'm into that kind of stuff, it sits in the box,
Yeah.
and I just keep it on, knowing I have it. I might just open up the box really carefully and then slide it out and look at it and say, "Oh my God, I love it," and then push it back in and close it back up so it looks like it's never been.
Yeah.
I would say collect what you like, and depending on how old you are, maybe play with it from time to time, or share it with your kids if you have them, or nieces and nephews like I did, or and enjoy it because that's really what these things are made for, is to enjoy. And I just hate to see when I go to the shows and I go out to antique places and things like that. I just hate to see stuff that's still got the wrapper on it. That's 40 years old, and it's just never been played with or enjoyed by somebody. And I think that's what gives toys and the collectibles their value is that they were actually loved and enjoyed and played with at some point. Same thing with cars. If I go to car shows and I see tons of cars, over the last 15, 20 years, I just hate to see a car that's got 5 miles on it. It's a '67 something or other, and it's got 5 miles on it because they just have been scared to take it anywhere. That's not what cars are built for.
Well, that's a lot of us collectors out there. Some of us they call in-box collectors, where they just keep it in the box because they want it to stay, mint and really, really good. Then there's the people out there who loves to have their stuff out and pose and take pictures and all that with it. And I'm a really vintage collector. I love to go out there and find stuff that's been played with and it has dust on it, like you said. Almost a barn find, like you do with a car. If you find those people who find cars in the barns and like, oh my god, this car's been sitting here for 30 years, I'm gonna resurrect it. I'm that type of collector myself, and I totally agree with you. If you there's some figures that I have in box on my wall, but it's just there where I can look at it and see it. And then there's stuff like with my collection here, where it's on the shelf and ready to be played with. And I agree with you with that. Just you need to enjoy the collecting aspect of it. You want to show us some of the stuff that you have? Do you have some pieces that you
I was going to show you, like I said earlier on, the Lost in Space robot. I got.
Do you know they made a bigger version of him now at Walmart?
Oh, I didn't know that. I'll have to.
Yeah, there's Mom, run in my room and see the robot. See him? You see how he looks? Get my robot out. Yeah, he actually talks and he walks, and it's at Walmart for like $19.
Yeah, I'll have to get that. Man.
Yeah.
Anyway, got this as an adult, okay, and I was really thrilled to finally get one like I wanted, since my childhood. It has the little button in the back. You press it, and the arms go out so it can say "Warning, danger, danger." It has and then it also has something else that's kind of neat. That when you rub your hand in front of it, it becomes okay. Now you got to be quiet. It kind of has a motion detector, so you can set it in your room, and if you want somebody to know you're wandering around in your room, not as valuable now as it was.
What do you think of the newest movie they made of, or the Netflix series they made of that series? Have you seen it?
Here, yeah, I watched both seasons of it. The first season was better than the second season. I understand they canceled it. I think the second season. Yeah, I think the second season is what killed it because it just made no sense. But here's what I think. Okay, when you do a reboot or a remake, you should really do something that adds to the mythology.
Yeah.
Of whatever it is, and that really didn't do it. But again, did it a little bit better than the second season. I didn't like what they did with the robot. I wasn't too thrilled that they made Maureen, the kind of the head of the family. But I liked it way better than I did the movie that came out in '97. So
yeah, they made. I kind of the one thing I did like about the new series is that they kind of made Smith into a woman. That kind of was, a little. Yeah, they that was kind of
She played a
social. It's not Robbie, It's this one is the Robbie the robot here from Walmart. Yeah. And
well, I'm gonna get that then.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. He also
I could be wrong, but I believe that Robbie the robot and the B9 robot from Lost in Space were created by the same person.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too, because they have that same design, almost the same design, same kind of robot. Back in the '70s, like robots were a big thing in like late '70s, early '80s, right? I mean, it was like sci-fi. It was huge. I mean, what was your favorite robot? Was the Lost in Space robot your favorite, or was somebody else?
I think it had to be the Lost in Space robot because that was like the first one I used to just love when I was a kid. While I was going around danger, danger, around the house, and I would drive mom and them crazy. And I just loved it. And when I was at school, I just spent my free time drawing the robot,
Oh, cool.
and I just wanted a robot. That's what I wanted, a robot that would follow me around and do stuff for me and beat up people I didn't like and shoot lasers at people and stuff. You
Well, who doesn't
that
want to
was
be
my
able to shoot lasers and take out people you don't like? That's a that's a dream of everybody, I think.
I'd be my own personal bodyguard.
um, so this was a great interview. Do you have anything else that you want to add before we leave?
No, I just want to tell you that, like I said, you said I was the one that introduced you to the Star Wars and sci-fi realm, and I want to tell you that was some of the happiest times of my young life is when we would play with those things, and I, kept them. I had them on shelves in my bedroom, and every time you came over, or one of the other kids came over, we could just pull down whatever we wanted to play with, and I remember sometimes every toy on the shelf was down on the floor. You were surrounded by them.
Yeah.
And it was just, I just remember those days, and I just love that time. That I graduated in not 83, which is 37 years ago.
Yeah.
And you remember your father gave me that blue car called the Duster.
Yeah, the Duster. Yep.
The favorite. I mean, my favorite thing to do is to look at the picture of that day. And you and Jeremiah were so tiny and everything, and I get all teary when I see that. And of course, I think about the toys we used to play with and going to see the movies and stuff like that. And watching the TV too. We used to watch Battlestar Galactica together.
Oh yeah.
And,
I didn't know until I started actually watching it again. You were the one who introduced me to Doctor Who. I didn't know. I was like, yeah. I remember seeing Doctor Who, and I was like, hey, Tony was the one who showed me. We watched just one episode, and I can almost go back and tell you exactly what episode we watched. It was this hand, and the hand regrew, in the tar because they picked it up from some alien. And I saw that when I was on Amazon. I actually saw the DVD for it, and I actually had a name of the episode and everything. I don't remember it now, but it was the exact episode from Tom Baker. And I was like, I knew Doctor Who before I started watching Matt Smith and all them. So I mean, you were the one who basically introduced me to Doctor Who on PBS because we were staying over at the house one night, and you were watching it. So
10 o'clock on Saturday night.
Yeah, exactly. We were. I was like, man, this is a cool show, but it's a little weird.
Yeah, of course it was good. They've Americanized it a lot in the new series. Now, I have to say, I haven't watched it since they turned Doctor Who into a woman.
It's actually pretty good. I have HBO Plus, and a lot of people is like, oh, it's not Doctor Who anymore. And I kind of like her character. She's a little bit different, but it's actually pretty good. So, and it's leading up to a storyline which I've heard about, but I'm gonna check out for myself. But it seems like it's okay. Not as good as Matt Smith or his run, but it's still pretty good. Matt Smith I think was my doctor. They always tell you that the first doctor that you actually sit down and watch for a long period of time is your doctor, and I think Matt Smith was my doctor. So because I mean Rose from that I actually got to meet Rose at a convention, and it was one of the greatest things ever. I don't know. Do you know who Rose is? Yeah. I actually, me and Emily actually have a picture.
She was one of the Doctor Who companions. I think she lasted through at least 2 of them.
Yeah, she was actually the Doctor's wife, so that was pretty cool. They supposed to have gotten married. But I can sit here and talk Doctor Who with you all day, but so we don't need to be doing that. People get bored.
When they turned Doctor Who back into
but it was great having you on. We'll have to do this. What's that?
I said when they turn Doctor Who back into a man, that's when I'll start watching again.
But I appreciate you coming on and talking about your love of cars and toys and telling us stories about when you were young and everything. And again, thank you everybody for watching. And you, like I said, you want to say bye to everybody?
Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Stay out of Corona and stay out of the riots and peace and
Stay
justice
safe.
for everybody.
Keep popping those tags, and we'll catch you next time. Peace.
All right. Thank you.